Hi, my name is Kate Madden. I live in Calgary, Alberta. I'm passionate about community, creativity, and collaboration. I also happen to be a transgender woman. In today's video, though, I'm not really talking about what it is to be trans, although I suspect that there's a video out there for me to make about being trans and codependent, and what came first? But this video is really kind of more what I've learned over the last couple of years about codependency, my experiences with codependency, how it's impacted me, and also, more importantly, the steps I've taken to heal and grow in the realization that I am codependent. So I was messaging with this guy, and for about a year it was back and forth, and he was a nice guy. And I say nice because he didn't send me a dick pic, and I find that is just the one thing that I draw the line at. An unsolicited dick pic. So he's from this small town about an hour and a half away. And I go to this town for work, but I'm always just in and out. Meet clients, get in, do what I need to do, and leave. He's seen me a couple times because it's a small town. And he's messaged me to let me know how great I looked and how sexy I am and all that. And it feels nice, I gotta say, on a day you're not feeling so great, to get a message like that, it certainly does feel nice. As it turned out, not too long ago, I had to go back to this town and spend the night. So I sent him a message. Hey, I'm spending the night in your town. Let's go grab a drink. Let's have dinner. Let's grab a coffee, whatever. And for most of the year, he'd been trying to get me to meet him about halfway between here and there at this little seedy motel that, in retrospect, probably charges by the hour. But his response was, I'd love to see you, but I can't be seen in public with you. I come from a very religious family. So do I. And I spent 40 years in the closet, in shame and secrecy, and I wasn't about to go back in for somebody else's sense of shame and secrecy, no matter how nice they were. So I called him a coward, told him to fuck off, and that was the end of it. I think I handled that the right way. The whole experience got me thinking, though, because it was a long period of time we were chatting with each other. It got me thinking about my experiences romantically as a codependent. And what are the things that I've learned over the last couple of years, since my divorce, since my separation, about being codependent. And while I am a trans woman and I go to therapy, I kind of need to go to therapy, just the hoops and the gatekeeping and all the bullshit I need to do medically, to prove that I am, in fact, transgender and not crazy. What I found over the period of time is that once I took that mask of dysphoria off, that didn't take long. I got a rubber stamp on that one from my therapist that yes, I am trans, super fast. But it took months and months of some really intense therapy to realize that I'm codependent. And what does that mean? And it's been a constant evolution and a journey, just trying to understand myself as a dysfunctional helper. And what that means is that I am going to enable you financially, psychologically, spiritually, romantically. I'm going to help you in your dysfunction because of my fear of rejection. So I am the biggest threat to myself in terms of my own long-term happiness. And that was something that I came to realize. And while this is a video on codependency, it's impossible to talk about being codependent without talking about narcissism. And I don't want to belabor the point, but if you just Google who is a codependent attracted to, or who is attracted to codependence, 9 times out of 10, it's a narcissist. Because that dysfunctional helping fuels the narcissistic personality disorder. And one of the things that really you need to come to understand and realize about your codependency is that there is no space for you. There's no space for you as an individual. Because anything about yourself as an individual is going to remove supply from the narcissist. And so you might want to do things on your own, get involved with hobbies, community groups, political organizations, high school buddies. But everything is really a threat to the narcissist because those are all unfiltered relationships that are going to subtract from the supply that the narcissist receives. So where I first encountered this was professionally. And what I noticed was that I was essentially taking my clients to get interviewed by my abuser. And I needed to have my clients approved in order to do business with them. And by clients, I mean female clients. If I didn't get somebody in to meet them in time, it became suspicious and full of mistrust. Either I was going to do something, and you know what, I wish I had done something because I was often treated as if I had, or they were going to do something, whether they were married or had kids or what have you. And so I share all this because as a codependent, chances are you're stuck in some sort of pattern of violence or cycle of violence with your partner or whoever your abuser is. And you know, like you're in the moment and you're in that pattern of violence, that cycle of abuse, and it's just cortisol in your brain and you're triggered into fight, flight, or response. It's no fun. But like, you know, you walk on eggshells, and then there's the event, and then there's the reset through the intimacy, physical, emotional, whatever. And within that pattern, it's classic. And you know, if you're not familiar with it, I've got a couple of videos on it from June and July that I've done. There's also a lot online about the pattern of violence, cycle of abuse, and how it impacts us as codependents. Another thing you can look up is empath. If you haven't heard this term yet, it seems to be kind of interchangeable from a clinical perspective. And one of the things that I've learned about myself just through kind of self-awareness is that I take shit on. Like, I will take the emotions on as my own. And when you're in that abusive cycle, the narcissist is free. They just gave it all to you. And a lot of times, this transference of energy or this transference of emotion, it can happen after hours and hours of conversation, after days of weeks of conversation about something. It can happen in the middle of the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the morning. It can happen while drinking. You're just going to get hit by a train, and it's going to make you feel like shit, and I am so sorry. It's not something I ever really learned how to work through or manage through, just the sudden onslaught of someone else's maelstrom of emotions, other than to get just very defensive, throw up a wall, and get very cold, which is not natural for me at all. Outside of being a defense mechanism, that is. Because all of your relationships are controlled and filtered, you're going to be isolated. And isolated, I don't want to say on purpose, and I'm sure sometimes it is on purpose, but it could just be a natural fact of the narcissistic supply. And so you'll be isolated, and then you'll also be triangulated. And what the triangulation means is that you'll have your abuser, you, and whoever the third party is. So you, abuser, friend, you, abuser, family member, not their family, but your family. They will isolate you from your family, and they will circle the wagons around your family. And again, this is classic behavior for a narcissist, because you're stuck in the relationships that they approve of, and so you really have nobody to turn to, and you have no real ability to understand what you're going through other than this doesn't feel good. But because you're a dysfunctional helper, you sit with it for weeks, months, years, decades, a lifetime. And in my case, it was being trans that really freed me from it, because I started going to therapy and then was able to identify all the things going on in my world. And so I live about an hour from the Rocky Mountains, and I know some people who hike regularly in the mountains. I don't. I'm not that girl at all. I'll go drive out to the mountains, take pictures, but I'm not climbing a mountain. One of the concepts that's been introduced to me is a false summit. So you're out there all day and you're climbing up, and then you get to where you want to be, or you get to where you think you want to be. And it turns out that you have another hour or two to go, another 500 feet, 750 feet, whatever it is. And that's the false summit. You thought you were going to one place, and now you have to go more and more effort. Or you get up there, and the dangerous part about mountain climbing is getting back down. And so, and with the narcissist, in terms of getting back down or finding that false summit, is that you need to disrupt the narrative, because it all comes down to the narrative, which is the reality of the narcissist. Finally beginning to understand yourself as a codependent doesn't align with the narcissist's view of whom you really are. They don't really know who you are. We're chameleons, and we hide ourselves in order to satisfy our partners or our coworkers or managers or our friends, to make them happy. And at the end of the day, really, because of that control, you're not going to understand that you're hurting until that narrative gets disrupted. One of the things that you can really try to help yourself with is to understand the relationship as a bridge, and how there's two sides, and you're responsible for the 50% that you bring to that relationship, and the other person is responsible for the 50% they bring. As a codependent, chances are you're taking up the whole bridge. And it's not so much that your partner or the other person is waiting for you on the other side, it's that you put them there, you let them stay there because of all that dysfunctional helping that we do by enabling them. So they're over there. And one of the things you're going to learn is that it's always your fault. So you'll learn to say lines like, "I'm sorry, you're right, no, it shouldn't have happened." And these aren't real apologies, because I'm not sure that you can really be sorry for something that you might not necessarily have done. I'm not talking about not being accountable for your shit. If you're not being a good person, if you're being a terrible partner, if you're not holding up your end of the social contract, whatever it is, own your own stuff and have some personal responsibility. But at the same point, understand where is your shit and where is their shit. And for us, there's so much enmeshment that it's hard to tell the difference between the two. But one of the lines that you can really kind of put into your head is, as you try to exit the relationship, is, "I can accept your flawed view of me." It's a line I haven't used in a long time, personally, just because I'm at the point where it doesn't matter, and the perspective is totally flawed anyways, and I just have to live with that, and I'm at the point now that I can accept that. It took a long time to get there, though. A long time. And the reason it took a long time is because you don't really exist. You're a trophy, an object to be put on display. Relationship is objectified, anthropomorphized, if might be a better way to put it. And it's put there for people to understand the narrative that is being told. So you exist only to support that narrative. You're not able to be yourself or be anything else other than a vessel in which to carry the supply, which then feeds the narrative and contributes to that reality. going to willingly do it. And this is the twisted part about who we are as codependents, is that we do this. We sign up for this. And we think we like it. For the longest time, we think we like it. And we think we like it because we're stuck in that pattern of violence. We're in that cycle and we just can't exit. And I hope some of the points I'm making are helping you identify where you are in your pattern, whether it's in the walking on eggs, the conflict, or the reset with the intimacy. But the view of you is that you have no worth because you don't exist. That's how they see you. And in the end, you will be discarded. You might be at a point in where you are in terms of exiting the relationship that you're okay with that, you can live with that. Or because of trauma bonding, you might think you're still in love. And I did a video in July, trans trauma and abuse, and about 3 or 4 minutes of that is about trauma bonding, and maybe I should do an entire video on it. But trauma bonding is a really intense thing that tricks us, I think, into thinking we're in love, or thinking that this is love, when really it's just abuse and control and manipulation. And so all this to say is that, and a friend shared this with me not too long ago, is that there's what happened, and then there's the story of what happened. And I think therapy can really help you break down and understand and identify what's going on in your head and really what's wrong with you, because there's stuff wrong with us as codependents. I am way happier and way more understanding and accepting of myself, of who I am, but it took 18 months of therapy to get here, and probably another couple years of therapy to go. Yeah, but I'm so grateful for all the things that I've learned, the tools I've been given, the skills I've been taught and encouraged and coached in, and how I can now begin to recognize when I'm willingly entering the pattern, when I can see it. And I did something a few months ago where my brain was screaming at me, stop it. But I wanted something, and I did get it. Where I wanted something, I wanted intimacy, and I did get it, if even for a brief while. And that was the reset, which then led to more opportunity for reflection and growth and just understanding of myself. And so the next time something came along, I understood it as an opportunity to do something without any expectation of return or any attempt to manipulate a situation into serving myself and my needs. Because we will manipulate our fear of rejection to feed ourselves with intimacy or friendship or romance or promotion, whatever it is. We do it, and we do it well. But I think a good question to ask yourself is, if you're doing something for someone, is what are your motivations? What do you hope to gain from this? And that's been a great help for me. And being in sales, understanding myself as a codependent is really interesting, especially I typically use scripted lines as I move through a sales process. And I've found that while they're still internalized in me, that I'm approaching it differently and seeking more input. And maybe this is part of transition for me, and this is where my whole gender identity comes into the equation. But I'm trying to seek more input now from a client, from a more collaborative approach. And what do you think? How does that make you feel? Versus, when you want to do this? Do you want to do this tomorrow, or do you want to start on the 1st? So I think I still have some work to do there and understand that part of it. So in closing, this video is really about helping you identify traits in yourself. It's about helping you exist. And if there's one thing that I can say, is you are enough. You are worthy. And you are so very much loved. I hope that some of what I've shared today helps you learn to identify things within yourself and your relationships, and then eventually live and love authentically. Because you deserve to live as yourself and not some trophy on the shelf. So thanks for watching. I hope you've found some value in this. Please like, subscribe, share. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your experience is with narcissistic abuse or being a codependent, or maybe there's some overlap you've experienced between codependency and being trans, and I'd love to hear your perspective. But here's to life.